Hi, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com. Today we're going to make cranberry and white chocolate shortbread, and this is what it looks like. These shortbread are wonderfully crisp, they're sweet and buttery, and we're also going to add some dried cranberries and some white chocolate chips to make them even better tasting. So, the first thing that you will need to do is preheat your oven to 325 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 165 degrees Celsius. And then you will need a 9-inch, which is 23 centimeter, tart pan. I have one with a removable bottom like this. If you didn't have a tart pan, you could use like a springform pan. So what I'm going to do is just lightly butter the bottom. So I just melted a little bit of butter and I'm using a pastry brush. Just that way it's easier for the when we cut it for it to release from the bottom plate there. Okay. And then, you know, shortbreads are so easy to make. If you have a stand mixer like I have here, use your paddle attachment. You could use a hand mixer for this, or really with a shortbread, you could just use a large bowl with a wooden spoon, because it's not like other batters where you want to beat the butter and sugar and get a lot of air. With a shortbread, if you've had them, they're really dense in texture, so we don't want to beat any air into it. We just want to mix the ingredients together, so you could just do it by hand. So, shortbread, all about the butter. You will need a half a cup, 113 grams of butter. Have your butter at room temperature. Now you could use salted or unsalted. I'm using unsalted like I always do because I like the flavor and I like to control the amount of salt in whatever I'm baking. But if you have a favorite salted, like I always say, you can use that. And if you live in the States, we have what is called a European style butter or cultured butter, and essentially, I mean, that's what I'm using here, and really what that means is it just has more fat in it which therefore gives us a richer tasting shortbread. So that's what that means if you've ever gone to the grocery store and seen European style and it's a little more expensive and you kind of wondered what it is. Just more fat. So I'm also going to add a quarter of a cup, 50 grams of granulated white sugar. Mine is off-white because I'm using an organic cane sugar, but either one. Oh, forgot some there. So now what I'm going to do, like I said, we do not want to beat this and get a lot of air. So I'm just going to beat it on medium-low speed just until the butter and the sugar are mixed together. You may have to scrape down your bowl once or twice. Keep that in mind. Okay, we're done. Just give it a quick scrape here. So now, in a separate bowl, I have 1 cup, which is 130 grams of all-purpose flour, plain flour, and I'm going to add just a quarter of a teaspoon, 1 gram. I'm using a fine kosher salt. You could use a table salt. And we're just going to put that. So, this batter is really good on its own. But today, we are going to add a quarter of a cup, which is 30 grams of dried cranberries. If you want, you could use other dried fruit, like another great one would be cherries, or really any dried fruit you could use. And if your cranberries are large, then I would cut them into smaller pieces. And if you find that your whatever dried fruit is a little like it's hard, what you can do is just put this in a larger bowl, add a little hot water, let it sit in the hot water about 5 minutes, and then drain, and you know they'll get nice and plump, and then drain them and pat them dry. That's a way to kind of get something that's kind of dry to nice and plump. And We're also going to add 1/4 cup, 40 grams of white chocolate chips, like the cranberry and you got the tanginess of the dried cranberries with the sweetness of the white chocolate chips. So if you don't like white chocolate chips, you could use dark chocolate chips or milk or any other type, or leave them out and add some nuts instead, chopped nuts. So really good. You can really adapt this recipe. So all I'm going to do, beat it on low speed until everything's mixed together. You don't want a solid ball of dough here when you're doing shortbread. You just want it to start to come together and the flour be all moistened. Okay, that looks good. I'm going to finish it off by hand. You just want to make sure that the flour is moistened by the butter. So, scrape down and kind of toss it a bit. I know people will ask, yes, you don't have to put it into a tart pan. You could take this and chill it, roll it out, and cut out with your cookie cutter, cut out individual shortbreads. You could make it into a log and do a slice and bake. So if you don't have a tart pan or you don't like a round, then by all means, do it one of the other ways. Very versatile. And also, if you don't have, say you have an 8-inch tart pan instead of a 9-inch, 8 inches, 20 centimeters, you could use that as well. Just keep in mind, it may take, 5 minutes more to bake. That's the only difference, is the baking time. So I'm just gonna use my fingers here and just kind of distribute it rather than put it all in the center. If you kind of put little clumps, it makes it much easier to press out in the pan. Okay. So now I'm just going to press it down. Try to get it even. You could use the bottom of a glass or, a spoon if you don't want to use your fingers. I usually take my spoon and just kind of even it out at the end. These are so good. I love shortbread. It's a simple cookie to make. It lasts a long time and it's just so good. I didn't add any vanilla flavoring to this. If you wanted to, you could add maybe a half a teaspoon of pure vanilla extract or even a 1/4 teaspoon of almond extract. That would be good as well. So versatile. Okay, I'm happy with that. So then I just take a fork and then just kind of prick it. I don't find this kind of rises at all, but just to make doubly sure, we will do this. So we're ready to bake them off. Everyone's oven is a little different. I'm going to say between 30-35 minutes. If you're using the 9-inch 23 centimeter tart pan, if you were using an 8-inch 20 centimeter, it might take 30 to 35 minutes for a 9-inch, probably 35 to 40 or maybe more for an 8-inch. But like I said, everyone's oven is a little different. So use baking times as, a guide, but you got to go by the look as well. And the longer you bake shortbread, the more crisp it will be. So I like to bake mine until it's golden brown. So don't just go by time, go by how it looks. Nice golden brown. So 30 to 35 minutes, I'm going to say. I do rotate my pan front to back about halfway to get a nice even bake. So our shortbread is done. So put your pan on a wire rack. Don't they look gorgeous? Beautiful golden brown. That's how I like them. So what I'm going to do is just let them cool down, just like this, to room temperature. And then when we come back, we will try one. So our shortbread has cooled down to room temperature. So to take these sides off, what I do is first just kind of press to make sure it's loose. And then, you notice I have a little bowl here. I just put that on there. It slides away. I find that a lot easier. And so, put on the cutting board. And with the sharp knife, I mean, you could just break off pieces if you want, or with a sharp knife, just cut through and cut the other way. And then, I mean, keep cutting this as much as you want to have the wedges as small as you want or as large as you want. So we'll do this. Okay, and you could, so that's what, 2. You could do it again, each one, you could do it across, but we'll just like that. Now sometimes what you will have is the tips of the wedges break off. I look at that, if they do, as my little treat. But they were all right this time. So there we have our wedge. I'm just going to break off a little piece. Do you know that these wedges are also called petticoat tails? Another name for them. If you ever hear them called that. Oh. I love shortbread. It's like my favorite cookie, I must admit. Oh. They are wonderfully crisp. They are buttery. You know, we didn't put that much sugar, so I don't find them overly sweet. And then you have, you know, a little bit of the dried cranberries, the white chocolate chips. Give me a hot cup of tea. And I'm set. I'm just set. Great thing. They're wonderful. Great thing about shortbread, they store really well, a week or more. You could freeze them. Never last that long, but you could freeze them. And, you know, they're just a great cookie any time of the year. They're so easy to make. Only a few, you know, butter, sugar, flour, essentially. That's all you need. And then, like I said, I used dried cranberries and white chocolate chips. You could leave that out and just have plain shortbread. You could add other dried fruits. You could add different chocolate chips. You could add some nuts. I mean, have fun with it. But this is a great basic shortbread recipe. So you must try them. And until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com.